The Nexus 9 station rotated silently against the backdrop of the Orion Nebula, its crystalline spires catching starlight in prismatic displays. Inside the Grand Chamber, representatives from 24 spacefaring civilizations arranged themselves according to ancient protocols. Some floated in containment fields, others stood on specialized platforms, and a few slithered across the temperature-regulated floor sections. Diplomat Ilara Chen entered last, as was customary for the newest member species. Her red formal uniform, the color chosen to help alien eyes track human movements, stood out vividly against the chamber's pearlescent walls. She carried no weapons, as mandated, but wore her ceremonial sash displaying Earth's simplified continents in gold thread. "The human representative is recognized," announced the conclave moderator, a hovering Telgian whose translucent body pulsed with neural light. "You may present your species' proposal regarding the disputed Epsilon sector mining rights." Ilara nodded, her dark hair shifting slightly as she activated her data terminal. "Honored representatives, Earth proposes a cooperative development initiative that would—" The flash came without warning, a pinpoint of brilliant blue light that expanded outward in a silent wave. Ilara's words stopped mid-sentence. Her expression shifted from diplomatic composure to momentary surprise as she looked down at the perfect circle burned through her chest. The data tablet clattered to the floor as she collapsed. Security fields snapped into place instantly, containment protocols isolating each section of the chamber. The Vorn delegation's area received particular attention, energy barriers glowing at triple strength around the reptilian representatives. "Medical emergency in the conclave chamber," announced the station's calm, automated voice. "Human biological support team requested." But the station's sensors had already registered what the assembled representatives could see. Diplomat Chen's life signs had terminated 4.3 seconds after the energy weapon discharge. The conclave erupted in a cacophony of translator-filtered voices. "Outrageous breach of neutrality. Scan for additional weapons immediately. The human must have smuggled in a provocative device. Motion to suspend all Vorn-speaking privileges." The Vorn ambassador, Superior Commander Xath, raised all four arms in what his species considered a gesture of peaceful intent. His scaled face remained impassive as his translator converted guttural clicks into standard conclave language. "The Vorn imperative categorically denies involvement in this regrettable incident. Our preliminary scan suggests the energy signature matches older human military technology. Perhaps internal human political factions sought to disrupt these proceedings." The chamber quieted as the human support team entered, their blue medical uniforms forming a circle around their fallen diplomat. Their movements were efficient but gentle as they confirmed what everyone already knew. The team leader looked up, her expression controlled yet somehow different than Ilara's had been, harder, focused. "Diplomat Chen is dead," she stated simply. "We request the immediate preservation of all security data and a full conclave investigation." The Telgian moderator's body dimmed slightly in what some recognized as their version of respectful mourning. "This is most unfortunate. However, as this appears to be an isolated security breach rather than an act of war, I propose we continue proceedings after a brief recess. The human delegation may assign a replacement representative." Across the chamber, alien species signaled agreement through their various physiological means: light patterns, chemical releases, vibrational emissions. The Vorn ambassador blinked his four reptilian eyes slowly. In Vorn culture, representatives are functional units. Their loss, while unfortunate, does not merit disruption of important diplomatic work, he observed. "Surely humans, aspiring to join galactic civilization, understand this pragmatic view." Only ancient ambassador Ksoth of the Mithrai, oldest of the conclave species, hobbled across the chamber floor toward Ilara's body. The wizened alien, resembling a bipedal tortoise with luminous eyes, bent with difficulty to touch her cooling hand. "You have made a terrible mistake," Ksoth whispered, although the chamber's acoustics carried the words to every representative. "They do not think as we do. They do not forget as we do." The conclave voted 23-1 to continue proceedings after assigning a replacement human delegate. Only the Mithrae abstained. No one noticed the small communication device on the human medical team leader's wrist, transmitting everything back to Earth. Cherry blossoms drifted across the Imperial Gardens as Admiral Jackson received the secure transmission. He stood motionless beneath the ancient trees, watching pink petals spiral down to the carefully raked gravel. Tokyo's sunrise painted the eastern sky in colors remarkably similar to the red of diplomatic uniforms. "Confirmed, sir," said the communications officer, voice tight with controlled emotion. Diplomat Chen was assassinated 14 minutes ago. Security footage confirms Vorn energy signature. The conclave has voted to continue proceedings without delay. Jackson nodded once. His weathered face betrayed nothing, but his hand closed around a falling cherry blossom, crushing it gently. "Initiate the Ilara protocol," he said quietly. Across 27 systems, human vessels simultaneously went dark. Colonial outposts from Europa to Proxima Centauri initiated lockdown procedures. Civilian traffic redirected toward human-controlled space in orderly patterns that, viewed from above, resembled a perfect geometric contraction. The remaining human delegation departed Nexus 9 station with minimal communication. Their final message, delivered in neutral tones without elaboration: "We require 30 standard cycles for our response." In the orbital palace of Tharsis Major, the Vorn High Command received reports of the human withdrawal with multiple pupilled eyes blinking in sequence, their equivalent of amused satisfaction. "Precisely as expected," Supreme Commander Zorkel noted, claws clicking against the polished bone of his command chair. "Their emotional fragility renders them predictable. They retreat rather than engage." Military strategist Vexnar flicked her throat scales in the gesture signifying cautious disagreement. "Intelligence suggests humans occasionally exhibit delayed retribution behaviors. Perhaps we should increase border patrols as precaution." "Unnecessary expenditure," Zorkel dismissed. "Their technology remains decades behind our defensive capabilities. This display of weakness will enhance our negotiating position with the Conclave. Their withdrawal proves they lack the commitment for galactic politics." Behind the sealed borders of human space, something unprecedented began unfolding. The manufacturing districts of Luna blazed with activity, their lights visible even from Earth's surface. Orbital shipyards that had seemingly been producing civilian vessels for decades revealed hidden construction bays as armored panels slid away. Retired military personnel reported for duty with astonishing speed, their civilian identities smoothly transitioning to military roles that appeared to have been maintained continuously despite official retirement. In Singapore, the Chen family home received a visit from the Secretary General herself. News networks across human space began broadcasting what became known simply as the Ilara Protocol, a contingency plan whose existence had never before been revealed to the general public. Volunteer registration centers opened in every settlement from the Martian domes to the mining stations of the Kuiper Belt. Citizens lined up in silent, orderly queues, each receiving task assignments that seemed perfectly matched to their skills and capabilities, as though the entire human population had been continuously assessed for decades for precisely this scenario. "I still don't understand," said Lieutenant Commander Okafor at the Luna Fleet Command Center, watching the mobilization statistics climbing across holographic displays. "Why name it after her? The protocol existed before Ilara Chen became a diplomat." Admiral Jackson's expression remained impassive as he studied the deployment patterns. "The protocol has always existed. The name changes to honor the catalyst." He looked up, meeting Okafor's eyes. "Ilara Chen will be the last human diplomat any species ever undervalues." Across the void between worlds, communications arrays that had broadcast human entertainment, scientific discoveries, and cultural exchanges for generations went silent. Monitoring stations at the edge of human space detected a shift in quantum communications, the previously open channels used as a gesture of diplomatic transparency suddenly switched to an encryption method that rendered them completely undetectable by any known conclave technology. On the 15th day, The Mithray ambassador, Ksoth, addressed an increasingly concerned conclave. I walked among humans in my youth, the ancient alien rasped. They have a saying. The quiet ones are planning something. We would be wise to remember this. The central plaza of New Auckland Colony shimmered with holographic light as thousands gathered before dawn. The projected image stood 20 meters tall. Ilara Chen smiling slightly, head tilted in the characteristic way her colleagues had come to recognize during diplomatic briefings. Similar gatherings occurred simultaneously across every human settlement from Earth's ancient cities to the newest mining outposts on distant moons. I never met her, whispered a young teacher to her neighbor as the memorial service began. But I dreamed about her last night. She was wearing blue and reading from an old paper book. The woman touched the red armband she wore, one of billions manufactured within days of the assassination. Her neighbor, a grizzled terraforming engineer, nodded. Strange, isn't it? I dreamed she was drinking tea and watching rain fall on Singapore. Never been to Singapore myself. Across human space, the phenomenon repeated itself. People who had never encountered Diplomat Chen in life spoke of her with intimate familiarity. Her preference for physical books over digital, her collection of antique teacups, the scar on her left hand from a childhood accident with a kitchen knife. Children planted memorial gardens using her favorite flowers. Artists created thousands of tributes in every medium from sound sculpture to orbital light arrays. Alien observation posts recorded the behavior with increasing bewilderment. A pattern defies rational explanation, reported the Morphics specialist to the Conclave Security Council. The tentacled psychologist's translation unit struggled to convey the proper incredulity. Humans who never encountered this specific individual display physiological grief responses identical to family members. Their neural scans show actual physical changes, new pathways forming as though personally connected to the deceased. The Telgen moderator's body pulsed with colors indicating deep concern. Is this some form of mass psychosis? A cultural indoctrination ritual? Neither, the Morphics replied, manipulating holographic brain scans. It appears to be an evolved trait. Human empathy isn't symbolic. It's a physical process. They neurologically incorporate the slain diplomat into their collective identity. Our models suggest every human above juvenile stage now carries some cognitive representation of Chen. The Vorn ambassador's scales darkened in the pattern indicating disdain, emotional weakness manifesting as biological defect. This confirms our strategic assessment. Their society prioritizes sentiment over pragmatic function. Yet even as the conclave debated, intelligence reports described unsettling developments. Human education centers had implemented what appeared to be pre-existing empathic reinforcement protocols. Children engaged in complex psychological exercises centered around Ilara, not merely memorializing her, but actively incorporating her experiences, preferences, and knowledge. They're doing something we've never documented in any sentient species, the Morphics explained, agitation causing its tentacles to twitch. They're creating a distributed consciousness, each human maintaining a fragment of the slain individual, preventing her complete death in a neurological sense. On the colonial world of Nuterra, 6-year-old Sophia Mbeki finished her memorial drawing of Diplomat Chen. Her teacher knelt beside her desk. That's beautiful, Sophia. Did you ever meet Diplomat Chen? The child shook her head, adding careful details to the teacup in Ilara's hand. No, but I know her favorite tea was jasmine with honey, and she was brave and kind and spoke 7 languages. Sophia looked up, her expression unnervingly adult. They thought killing her would make her disappear, but now she's everywhere. She's in all of us. In orbit above a Mithrai observation post, a cloaked human vessel recorded the transmission and vanished before defense systems detected its presence. Ambassador Ksoth watched the security footage later, his ancient eyes narrowing at the child's words. He turned to his aide. Cancel my appointments. I must address the conclave immediately. The ancient alien's voice carried rare urgency. There is a human concept they must understand before it's too late. something they call distributed grieving. A species that can share death this way can share purpose this way. And shared purpose makes them unlike anything we have encountered before. The trading vessel Prosperity drifted through the quiet edges of the Cygnus Reach, its sensors lazily scanning for resource deposits. Captain Dralek, like most Centaurians, preferred the isolation of border territories to the political complexities of core worlds. His six-fingered hands adjusted the navigation controls as his first mate entered the bridge. Another empty sweep, the first mate reported. Nothing but. The proximity alert cut him off. Both crew members froze as the scanner displayed an unidentified vessel materializing less than 2 kilometers off their port side. Impossible, Dralek whispered. Nothing could approach that close without. The vessel was sleek and dark, its hull absorbing rather than reflecting light. No identification markings were visible, but its design was unmistakably human. Before Dralek could activate communications, the ship executed a detailed scan of the Prosperity and the surrounding space, the energy pulse washing over them with precision. They're scanning everything. Our cargo, engine signature, crew biosigns, the first mate said, fingers dancing across the console. Should I raise shields? The captain hesitated. No aggressive moves. They haven't. And then the human vessel simply vanished, not with the flash of a jump drive or the distortion of a wormhole generator, but as though it had never been there at all. Only the Prosperity's sensor logs confirmed its brief existence. Similar reports emerged across 12 sectors within the same 30-hour period. Unidentified human vessels appearing without warning, conducting detailed scans, and disappearing before defense systems could properly activate. Each report described identical behavior. No communication attempts, no hostile actions, just silent observation followed by impossible disappearance. The emergency conclave session that followed was unusually subdued. Representatives from 17 species requested floor time, an unprecedented number for a non-scheduled meeting. Ambassador Soth shuffled slowly to the central platform, leaning heavily on his carved staff. The ancient Mithray shell had faded with age to a pale blue-gray, and crystals embedded in his carapace, signs of extreme longevity among his kind, caught the chamber's light. I walked among humans centuries ago, the ancient alien rasped, his voice carrying despite its softness. Before they reached the stars, when they were confined to their world of oceans and shifting continents. Even then, they possessed this quality we still fail to understand. The chamber quieted further. Few living beings had encountered pre-spaceflight humans. Soth was perhaps the last. They were building great stone monuments to preserve their dead when my ancestors were still perfecting interstellar travel. Soth continued. Learn from history. When the Earth panda bear was hunted to near extinction, humans spent more resources saving it than many civilizations allocate for planetary defense. The ancient ambassador's eyes swept across the chamber. Now imagine what they allocate when it's one of their own. The Vorn delegation shifted uncomfortably, scales flexing in patterns of dismissal. These ghost ship sightings are merely intimidation tactics, the Vorn ambassador stated. Their technology remains inferior to our defensive capabilities. Our military analysts have confirmed this repeatedly. Soth's laugh was dry as ancient paper, and yet these inferior vessels appear and disappear at will in your most secure sectors, gathering information you cannot prevent them from taking. They show you exactly what they wish you to see, nothing more. As the debate continued, the Conclave's technical division delivered their preliminary report on human communications. The Telsian moderator's translucent body dimmed in what many recognized as alarm as she reviewed the findings. Human quantum communication systems, previously monitored as part of our transparency agreements, have switched to an entirely unknown encryption method, she announced. We cannot detect the signals themselves, only the absence where communications should be. It is as though they are communicating through spaces between spaces. On the 30th day of humanity's silence, exactly 15 days from its announced conclusion, A single human vessel requested permission to dock at Nexus 9. Its name, visible in simple block letters across its hull. Remembrance. The Nexus 9 docking bay cycled through decontamination protocols as the human vessel Remembrance settled onto its designated platform. Security personnel from 6 different species formed a perimeter, their weapons conspicuously ready despite diplomatic protocols prohibiting armed response to official envoys. Captain Maya Santos strode down the boarding ramp alone. Her uniform bore no rank insignia, no weapons, no decorations, just a simple black design with a single red band around her left arm bearing Ilara Chen's name. The assembled security forces tensed visibly as she approached, but she moved with calm precision, stopping at the exact boundary of the diplomatic reception area. "I request an immediate audience with the full conclave," she stated, her voice carrying easily through the cavernous bay. "I bring information regarding the assassination of Diplomat Chen." The Telgian escort pulsed with blue uncertainty. The conclave is not currently in session. Representatives would need to be summoned from. "They are already here," Maya interrupted gently. "Emergency protocols were activated 37 minutes ago when our ship was detected approaching the station. All representatives are currently in their private chambers awaiting instructions." The Telgian's pulses quickened. The humans somehow knew internal security procedures that were supposedly classified. "I will escort you to the waiting chamber until—" "Thank you," Maya nodded. "But I will wait in the main conclave hall. The information I bring must be delivered to all representatives simultaneously." Within 1 standard hour, the conclave chamber had filled with representatives from all 24 spacefaring civilizations. The Vorn delegation arrived last, their entry deliberately unhurried, scales arranged in patterns suggesting confident disinterest. Captain Santos stood alone at the center platform, still and composed. When the chamber quieted, she activated a holographic display with a small gesture. The 3-dimensional projection materialized above the chamber center. A network of communications, financial transfers, military orders, and personal meetings. "Diplomat Ilara Chen was my friend since we were 6 years old," Maya stated, her voice controlled though not emotionless. "She taught me to play cello. I attended her wedding. Her favorite breakfast was sort of toast with honey." She gestured toward the display, highlighting specific nodes. "Her death was sanctioned by Vorn High Command as a deliberate test of human resolve." The chamber erupted in multi-species chaos. Accusations, denials, and translation difficulties created a cacophony that the Telgian moderator struggled to control. The Vorn ambassador shot to his feet, all 4 arms extended in rigid denial. "This is fabricated propaganda. We demand verification from neutral sources." Maya's expression remained unchanged as she manipulated the display. "These are communications intercepted between Commander Zorkel and the assassin Vexthan, including payment authorization and operational parameters." Another gesture brought forward a different section. "Here are the military orders specifying the energy signature to be used, carefully calibrated to suggest older human technology." As accusations and counter-accusations filled the chamber, emergency alerts cascaded across communication channels. The conclave's security systems displayed impossible readings. Somehow, human stealth vessels had positioned themselves throughout Vorn space, undetected by the most sophisticated sensor networks. Orbital platforms around 3 Vorn colony worlds transmitted visual confirmation of human military vessels, decloaking simultaneously in high orbit. The Telgian moderator's translucent body pulsed with alarm patterns never before seen in the chamber. "This is an act of war. Human forces have invaded sovereign Vorn space." Maya shook her head slightly. "No shots have been fired. No borders crossed without prior treaty permission. We have simply revealed ourselves." She looked directly at the Vorn delegation, her eyes holding a calm intensity that caused even the reptilian representatives to still their agitated movements. "For generations, we've shown you our art, our music, our cooperation, but never our full capabilities. You mistook restraint for limitation." Her voice softened slightly. And now you have exactly 5 days to surrender those responsible for Ilara's death. After that, we will retrieve them ourselves. Day 5 arrived with the precision of an atomic clock. Across Vorn space, the countdown reached 0 simultaneously on every world, moon, and orbital station. The Vorn High Command had spent the interim days bolstering defenses, mobilizing reserve units, and issuing defiant statements rejecting human demands. Their communication channels broadcast confidence in overwhelming numerical and technological superiority. At precisely the promised hour, the stars themselves seemed to shimmer above key Vorn military installations. The first sign of the human offensive came not as weapons fire, but as silence. Communication networks failed system-wide, replaced by a single message in the Vorn language. Non-combatants, seek shelter. This conflict is not with you. Advanced mechs dropped from stealth transports onto the primary defensive platforms of Tharsis Major. Their movements blurred with inhuman speed, limbs flowing like quicksilver as they disabled weapon systems with surgical precision. No two units appeared identical, each seemingly adapted to its specific target with perfect efficiency. Orbital platforms neutralized defense grids with weapons that manipulated gravity itself, creating localized distortions that rendered kinetic barriers useless without harming the structures they protected. Vorn commanders watched in disbelief as their supposedly impenetrable shields simply folded space around incoming projectiles, allowing them to bypass defenses entirely. The conclave observation feeds showed human soldiers moving with startling coordination, their neural implants enabling a squad-mind consciousness that allowed them to function as a single organism. Where Vorn military doctrine relied on overwhelming force, the humans deployed minimal but precise pressure at exact vulnerabilities. They're communicating faster than our sensors can detect, reported a Vorn tactical officer, scales pale with stress. It's as though they anticipate orders before they're given. Most astonishing to watching aliens was the restraint. Human forces accepted casualties to evacuate Vorn civilian centers before engaging military targets. Specially designed non-lethal technologies immobilized Vorn who surrendered, while lethal force was reserved only for those who continued fighting after multiple warnings. In the command bunker beneath the capital city, Supreme Commander Zorkel watched his strategic display with rigid disbelief as fortress after fortress reported capitulation. "Impossible," he hissed. "Their restraint makes no tactical sense. They expend resources protecting our civilians while accepting their own casualties. This defies rational military doctrine." His aide, bleeding from a shoulder wound, looked up from a communication terminal. "Sir, they're broadcasting a message directly to this bunker. They're offering safe passage for all personnel except those named on their list." Zorkel's scales darkened with rage. "What list?" "The individuals directly involved in authorizing Diplomat Chen's assassination, sir. You're at the top." Above the primary military academy on Vorn Prime, a human vessel hovered, its weapons systems dormant. Instead of bombardment, it projected a continuous holographic image visible to the entire city. Ilara Chen, speaking at a diplomatic conference, advocating for peaceful cooperation between species including, ironically, the Vorn. A Mithrai observation vessel, permitted to monitor the human operation, transmitted continuous updates to the conclave. Ambassador Ksoth watched the feeds with ancient, knowing eyes. They could obliterate their enemy entirely, he noted to the assembled representatives. Yet they choose the harder path of selective justice. Watch and learn. They value the lives of their enemies, even while avenging their dead. This paradox is the essence of humanity. By the second planetary rotation, targeted Vorn leadership facilities had surrendered or been neutralized. Human forces secured only military and government installations directly linked to the assassination plot. No territory was claimed. No resources seized. Their only demand, those responsible for Ilara Chen's death. The human flagship Remembrance positioned itself at the heart of conclave space, its massive form dwarfing the diplomatic vessels that typically occupy the sector. Unlike the sleek predatory lines of military craft, The remembrance resembled a floating city, its hull incorporating gardens, observatories, and what appeared to be artistic installations alongside its formidable weapons systems. Within 2 planetary rotations of the surgical strike, targeted Vorn leadership facilities had surrendered those deemed responsible. Commander Zorkel and 6 other high officials were transferred to human custody aboard specialized containment vessels. No executions followed, no public humiliation rituals, only quiet, efficient processing and secure confinement. The conclave chamber filled beyond capacity as representatives from all species gathered for the human address. Many brought additional aides and military advisors, an unprecedented breach of protocol that the Telgian moderator permitted without comment. Admiral Helena Takahashi entered alone. Silver-haired and straight-backed, she wore a formal uniform with the now familiar red armband bearing Ilara's name. Her eyes swept the chamber once before she began speaking without preamble. "We value peace above victory," she stated, her voice carrying naturally throughout the space. "But justice above all. We withheld our true capabilities out of hope for understanding." The chamber holographs activated at her subtle gesture, displaying human ships now revealed around key strategic worlds throughout conclave space, vessels larger and more advanced than anything previously shown to the galactic community. The representatives shifted uneasily as they recognized the implications. These positions could only have been achieved through technological means far beyond current understanding. "Our terms are simple," Admiral Takahashi continued. "Accountability for those responsible, restitution to Ilara's family, and a new conclave charter that protects the lives of all diplomats as sacred trust." Her voice softened slightly, though the steel behind it remained evident. "We have always known we are different. You measure civilization by collective achievement, impressive structures, conquered territories, accumulated resources. We measure it by how we value a single life." The Telgian moderator floated forward, her translucent body pulsing with formal patterns. "The conclave acknowledges humanity's position. However, this display of force is not a threat," Takahashi interrupted gently. "It is clarity. We have never shown you our true selves because we believed understanding should precede demonstration. That was our mistake." She gestured to the displays again, but this time they showed something unexpected. Human medical ships delivering advanced treatments to underserved conclave worlds, engineering vessels reinforcing failing planetary shields against solar radiation, agricultural specialists introducing sustainable farming techniques to struggling colonies. "These operations have been ongoing for decades," Takahashi explained, quietly without recognition or diplomatic advantage. "Not because we sought to deceive, but because we believed help should be given without expectation of reward." The Admiral's gaze traveled across the chamber, meeting the eyes, sensory clusters, or visual receptors of each species representative. "Choose carefully. We offer partnership in a safer galaxy, but we no longer need your approval to ensure it." Her expression remained composed but resolute. "You believed us weak because we cherish life. You mistook compassion for vulnerability. That misunderstanding ends today." In the silence that followed, Ambassador Kasoth's ancient voice carried clearly from his delegation's platform. "I move that the conclave accept humanity's terms without modification," the Mithrai said, "and that we formally request their leadership in drafting the new diplomatic charter." The vote that followed was unanimous, the first such consensus in the conclave's 1,000-year history. One stellar cycle later, Nexus 9 Station had transformed. Where once sterile corridors and utilitarian meeting chambers dominated, now a central garden bloomed at the heart of the diplomatic sector. Earth plants mingled with flora from 24 worlds, creating an ecosystem unlike any naturally occurring in the galaxy. Species whose representatives once required separate atmospheric chambers now shared the same carefully calibrated environment. At the garden's center stood a living memorial, a tree with glowing bioluminescent leaves, each containing a microscopically encoded fragment of Ilara Chen's DNA. The hybrid organism, developed jointly by human and Mithrai geneticists, responded to nearby sentient presence by subtly shifting its light patterns, creating what appeared to be conscious recognition of visitors. Young Vorn scientist Kextar led a group of students through the garden toward the central memorial. His scales bore the distinctive bluish tint of the reformist movement that had swept Vorn society, following what their historians now called the Awakening. Before Ilara, he explained to his students, our culture measured civilization by collective achievement, how many worlds conquered, resources accumulated, enemies subdued. The students watched, fascinated, as the memorial tree's lights shifted in response to their approach. Humans showed us a different calculation, that the value of any society can be measured by how it honors a single life. A human delegation approached from the opposite side of the garden. The students tensed briefly, an instinctive response to the species that had so thoroughly demonstrated its superiority, but relaxed as the humans smiled and gestured in the new universal greeting developed by the reformed conclave. Ambassador Santos, Kextar acknowledged with respect. These are Tactical Academy students observing diplomatic protocols. Maya Santos, now Earth's senior ambassador to the conclave, nodded to each student individually, a human custom adopted by many species for its recognition of personal identity. Perfect timing, she said. We've just received confirmation that the Joint Defense Initiative will proceed to Phase 3 next month. Your students will be eligible for the exchange program. One bold student stepped forward, presenting the quadruple-armed salute of formal Vorn inquiry. Ambassador, our historical studies indicate you were closest to Diplomat Chen. May I ask, would she approve of what followed her death? Maya's expression softened. She reached out to touch one glowing leaf of the memorial tree before answering. Ilara believed in connection above all else. Her favorite Earth philosopher wrote that no person is an island, that each death diminishes everyone. She smiled slightly. She would be pleased not by the show of force, but by what it created, genuine understanding. In Earth orbit, the newly established Diplomatic Corps Academy conducted its graduation ceremony. Cadets from 37 species, including the first-ever Vorn delegation, took their oath beneath a simple monument bearing words that had now entered the lexicon of every conclave language. From one spark, like for all. The class valedictorian, a young Telsian whose translucent body pulsed with determined patterns, addressed her peers with the traditional closing. We are many species, but one community. Many individuals, but one purpose. We honor Ilara Chen not by remembering her death, but by creating the connected future she envisioned. Across the galaxy, on worlds that had once viewed each other with suspicion or incomprehension, beings of all forms gathered in gardens modeled after the Nexus 9 memorial. They shared stories, traditions, and the simple miracle of understanding what humanity had known all along, that recognizing the value of a single life was the beginning of true civilization. And among the stars, human vessels continued their quiet work, forever changed by what a single death had taught the galaxy.